The whole story that developed a few days back where the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Muslims, female students in Lagos primary and secondary schools, ruled in their favor for public schools, ruled in their favor to wear hijab. And that's the crux of what we're going to be looking at today. And joining us on this very sensitive topic is Malam Asunogay Nurudeen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
Malam Nurudeen Asunogay is also a custodian of the law. By that I mean a legal practitioner. Well, a lot greeted the country, Nigerians, when the Supreme Court gave that verdict in favor of the Muslim female students in Lagos State's public primary and private secondary schools. Now, what do you make of this development? Because we as a country, as a nation, we have a heterogeneous background, and we seem to be a secular state. I said that because some are saying that this development shouldn't be happening in a secular nation state. What's your reaction?
Well, thank you. I think the unfortunate thing is that majority of us Nigerians suffer this incurable addiction to distractions. And when we get pixelated by things that are not, we have issues of this kind. In the very first instance, it is not true that we are secular. We are a multi-religious state. Because by secularism, you're talking about entombing God in the affairs of us. If that were true, you won't see our national anthem and our pledge ending up with "So help me God." You don't find that in secularism. In a multi-religious state, what plays out, of course, is that no one religion is promoted by the state at the expense of other. That's basically what we have. As it relates to the Supreme Court judgment, the Supreme Court didn't just wake up to decide on the issue of the hijab. Let us go to the origin of what culminated in that Supreme Court judgment that we today talk about.
Okay.
Two students were on their way to school and they wore the hijab. They were in the bus when they were accosted by the vice principal of that school inside the bus. And the vice principal forcefully removed the hijab from them while they were still in the bus. It took the intervention of some other passenger before the hijab were retrieved from the vice principal and given. By the time the vice principal got to the school, he convoked an assembly. And there he expressly said the use of hijab was prohibited in this school. Those two students were brought out and were subjected to all forms of psychological trauma and mortification. Now, it became a basis for those who are classified as, because they were minor, they were not in a position to institute a legal action to ask that the infringement of their fundamental human rights be redressed. And so their next friend in this contest, their parents went to court. At the Lagos High Court, the judge, the learned trial judge, dismissed the petition, saying that there was no infraction of their fundamental right. And so they went on appeal. At appeal, the panel of justices found as a fact that they had whatever, because what was raised was, what does section 3842 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, what does it say? All this, the gist of that, of course, talks about the right to religion, to express whatever. Now, what does it say? The learned judge at the trial level had so motu addressed the issue of chapter 10 of the Constitution. And it is settled law. When a court on its own raises an issue, the parties involved must be invited to speak to that issue, must be invited to pontificate on the issue that the court, the court of course can raise issues so much, but once you do so, the parties must be invited to address that they didn't do. And what he was simply saying was the fact that, no state religion should be promoted. And the use of hijab by these ladies or any Muslim student could never, by whatever stress of imagination, be said to be tantamount to the promotion of one religion over the other by the state. And so when they went on appeal, the appeal found as a fact that the basis, the provenance of the judgment of the lower court was defective. And so that appeal succeeded. The Lagos State government, dissatisfied with the judgment of the Court of Appeal, went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court found as a fact that the right to express themselves was fundamental and that these children had the right to so do. And they got judgment.
Thank you for taking us through that ride on the developments of that story. You made mention of the Section 38 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which speaks about freedom of thought, conscience, and religion.
Yes.
Now, don't you think this will cause chaos? Because you also said that we are not a secular nation state. We are much religious. Now, don't you think if this, just as this has been given a ruling in favor of the female Muslim students, don't you think others who are Christians, of different sects, like the Celestial churches, for instance, that come to worship barefooted, that always have their regalia on, don't you think they also should be given
a form of discrimination
recognition in the law? Since you quoted Section 38 of the Constitution, and it seems to apply in favor of the female Muslim students.
Well, you see, obviously, if they choose to do that, all well and good. How would that cause confusion? You see, but what the Supreme Court did, of course, was to say, what is the authority? The entire edifice that is Islam is predicated on the Quran. The entire beautiful edifice of Christianity is predicated on the Bible. And so, whatever you say as a Christian that you are required to do, we say, give us the authority for that from the Bible. If you are able to purvey the authority from the Bible, oh, well and good. You are at liberty to do what you want to do for as long as it's supported by the religion that you profess. So if I, for example, say I'm a Muslim and that the Quran gives me, it makes it mandatory for me to do X, Y, Z, I will be required. Let us see that provision of the Quran that makes it mandatory for you to do X, Y, Z. So when you are able to say that, oh, well and good. I can tell you, come to the university, for example, where serious academics are done. People dress in different forms. You go to the United Kingdom that had colonized us. Official, there is a judge, there is a judge of the United Kingdom who is is not one who have naturalized, is a born Briton who wears hijab. You find them in their military, you find them in their police. And so you see, it is only when we get besotted with bigotry that issues like this come. How you choose to dress. For example, where is the discombobulation if you choose to wear a coat and tie to this place of work, and another person decides to come with mini skirt and stuff like that? How does that come between you and the efficiency that is required of you, which of course was the basis for your engagement?
So in other words, we are saying institutionalization of the usage of hijab,
yes,
will not cause a form of religious discrimination.
Against who?
We have other worship apart from Christians and Muslims. We have traditional worship.
For example, I wear beards. You probably have your own shirt. He doesn't have at all. How does my beards serve as a basis for your discrimination?
Okay.
So what does my beards, what does it confer on me that you are denied? If I walk into a class, for example, as a lady, or my daughter walks into the class as a lady, dressed in hijab, how does
covering her school uniform.
The hijab doesn't cover the school uniform. It gets to just this level. I mean, we have seen them. You mean you have not seen one? If I knew, I would have probably be more armed and showing you pictures so that you can see one. Okay. So it covers no picture. Okay. You are talking about discrimination. Now, the issue is simple, which is what, of course, Section 42 of the Constitution deals with, that nobody by virtue of birth and stuff like that suffer discrimination. How does my daughter who walks into the class to receive lecture and another person chooses to come with pints or whatever that person chooses to come with, how does the hijab of my daughter amount to a discrimination on the part of that person? Let us establish this. Where is the discrimination coming from? Except we just want to be economical with truth. Where is it coming from? She wears hijab, so she walks into that classroom. The lecturer walks in, and the lecturer is not under even an obligation. The lecturer, for example, is not under an obligation to wear uniform. If a tutor in a secondary school, for example, was a Muslim, and she chooses to come to the class and wears hijab, are you going to say that she puts on hijab is discriminatory to the student? She becomes the focus of attention because she's the one communicating the knowledge. So when people say all of this, they obviously are saying what is difficult, so difficult for one to comprehend. How does that amount to discrimination? Except discrimination has a meaning outside the meaning that you and I know.
Okay.
Okay, you spoke about the country not being a secular state.
Yes.
Because like what the dictionary offers here, not specifically religious as the meaning of secular. Now, what does Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution say? Because it seems to suggest the secularization.
No. The gist of Section 10 is that no state, no single religion will be promoted by the state.
Exactly.
No single religion. So, no single religion will be promoted by the state does not mean that the state does not recognize religion and the right to adherence of these different religions to practice the religion. It explains why, if Edo State government today sets up a Muslim pilgrim welfare board, is under an obligation to set up a Christian pilgrim welfare board. If it does one and says, I won't do the other, that amounts to discrimination and a violation of that provision of the Constitution.
Okay, but how does it come in? You know, because I think we're going to be doing a lot of explanation on this, because you just made mention of what the explanation is on Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution. Yes. You know, because some will say that this development seems to promote, you know, the religion, the Muslim religion, you know, in public and private schools.
It's not correct.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, after which we extend the frontiers of this discussion. Do stay. While we had a break, we were opportunity to be joined by the chairman, Edo State chapter of the Association for Formidable Education and Development. He is an educationist by that. He is Osagie God-sent Ewuse. Thanks for joining us, Osagie.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Good morning, viewers.
Well, stories developing over the hijab and the verdict of the Supreme Court. Now, we are looking at this. Do you see Section 10, which seems to explain the aspect of the country not promoting a particular religion over others? Do you see this hijab, you know, development in Lagos State on the ruling of the Supreme Court as contravening this section?
Yes, absolutely. If you ask me, Phil. You see, it's quite unfortunate that we live in a nation where religious affiliation and sentiments cloud our sense of judgment. There is no right thinking Nigeria, irrespective of your religious affiliation. I mean, even an ordinary man that is not a lawyer or a judge should know that that is an insensitive judgment. It's a judgment
No, you don't need to criticize the judgment. All you just need to do is talk about what developed. You know, because
I wasn't criticizing it, but I was trying to build up something, you know, because let's throw the cards on the table. Beside the fact that we're having a lot of religious issues and crises in this nation, if you look at it very closely, Nigeria is not an Islamic state. That's number one. Number two, when you talk about religion, it's a private practice. By that provision, nobody is stopping you from doing or dressing in a way that your religion permits. Okay. I think we must get that clear. But let's put this into perspective. The school is not a religious worship center. You know where this is going to. This, in the days to come, I know personally that decision cannot stand the test of time. And I will tell you my reasons. Number one, if you say to some certain group, irrespective of where you go, as in a former educational center, you can dress in whatever way you want. Don't also forget that it is not only the HIJAB scenario we have here. There are also other worshippers who have a right to their dress. Like I said earlier on, the section of the Constitution that clearly spells out that Nigeria is a secular state does not deny any religious practice or any religious dressing format.
But the lawyer just said that the lawyer just said that Nigeria is not a secular state.
Who said? That section 10 said so. I'm not a lawyer, but this
okay,
is
but the lawyer said that. So I think we should give more evidence to what the lawyer
said so. That is a secular state. Except he's telling me Nigeria is a Christian state or an Islamic state. But let me point out my point bluntly. Now, I want you to think about this scenario. If you say, don't forget, first of all, that we are also allowed to have religious school. The Muslim group have their school, that even the missionaries also have their school, and they have a right to determine their bylaws in consonance or in agreement with the Nigerian Constitution. Okay. So if you choose to go to a Muslim school where all Muslim ethics and practices are adopted, nobody is against that. Same go for the Christians. But when it becomes public, number one, don't forget that what is public is owned nationally. It's not the right of any religious group. Don't also forget that what is public is sponsored by taxpayer money. Whether it is a traditionalist, is a Buddhist, or is a Ragamufian, what do you call them, or is a Muslim, Rastafarian, sorry, is a Muslim or it's a Christian. They are all pools of taxpayers' money. So at the backdrop of this, I would have expected that the Supreme Court judges become more sensitive in arriving at such decisions. Like I've said before, you have a right to determine where you go. But imagine this scenario, Phil. If you say all public schools must adapt or allow the wearing of hijab, which of course, number one, the school is a learning center. It's a distraction to the purpose of the school. It's not a worship center. It's a learning center. Now, the traditionalists have a right to say my child should have a native chalk on the right side of his face, where kuku said, or powder and a red attire, because that is what my religion, as a traditionalist, the Ragamufian or whatever you call them, have a right to carry their dreadlock and also say that is what my religion permits. They don't also forget we have this group, white garment churches, the Cherubim and Seraphim. They also have a right to say I will dress and without any of my slippers and palms.
Come to school barefoot.
Come to school. Now, you will now be wrong to say they shouldn't do that, because it is their religious practice. That is what they believe in. Now, my question is, what would the scenario of such learning center be? That's the reason why I said without any sentiment. It's not about whether you are for this or not. We must promote neutrality in the public space and call a spade a spade. We must not mix professionalism with extreme religious beliefs or biasness.
So are you saying you are actually you disagree with the Supreme Court?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
For me, it's uncalled for. It's just heightening the tension of religious, religious tension and biasness.
Let's go back to the lawyer. he made mention of that, of the religion, that Nigeria being a secular state. As in, I know you differ from that, but can you throw more light in this section of Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution in that regard?
Well, thank you. You see, the Supreme Court judgment has come and it has come to stay. Whoever doesn't like it, you wait until God times come. Now, Section 10 of the Constitution says, the gist, like I told you, of that section of the Constitution is that no state religion, the state shall not adopt any religion as the state religion. Oh, the Muslims are predominant in Sokoto. The Sokoto state government says Islam is the state religion. That will be in infraction of Section 10 of the Constitution. Oh, the Christians are more in River State. The governor of River State wakes up to say the religion of this state is whatever. That will be done in infraction.
Okay, so it does not relate to a way of dressing?
It doesn't relate to a way of dressing. How does it relate? In the university environment where we do serious academics, people dress the way they want to dress. How has it caused distraction? Federal government girls college. Go to the one you have here. Go there now. They are dressed in hijab, the Muslims who are there. What is the distraction? That is the figment. Like I told you, it's only persons who are pixelated with bigotry that will come to tell you it will cause distraction. What is the distraction? If a Muslim teacher, for example, is a teacher in his school and dresses in hijab, how does that cause distraction? In the United States of America, ladies wear hijab to classes. In the United Kingdom that colonized us, they wear hijab to classes. So what are we talking about? So if you say you are a Christian, that your Christian whatever says you can go barefooted to school, so be it. All right. So if you have your right, go and have your right.
Let me take you.
There's absolutely nothing.
Are you sure the legal system?
No. When you say whether it will go first before, you cannot begin to speculate. These are all speculation. You go. Let me tell you. When I was in primary school, I used to go to school on Saturday. In primary school. We don't go to school anymore on Saturday. You know why? The 7 days Adventists, a Christian arm, went to court to say that is the day of worship. Sunday, we don't go to church. We don't go to work. I go to work on Friday. The Muslims have not said it's discriminatory. It has not said so. The public space we are talking about, go to UBTH or anywhere you go to now, the symbol of the hospital is a cross. We have not said anything because these are all pedestrian issues. They're pedestrian issues. So to put on hijab is a fundamental aspect of the religion of the lady. The one who says, oh, I could dress this way, do it everywhere. You come to my house, my mature daughters are on hijab. Even if they are in the house and the stranger comes, they go to the market, they put it. It's not for fun. It's not just you wear it to school and you come and you remove it. It is part of the religion. It defines them. It's their identity.
Okay, now,
it's like part of
let's know what is the significance of hijab.
The significance of hijab is that it's just like you are asking what is the significance of observing God's law. God says if you were a female, put on hijab. It says it gives you an identity. It guarantees for you modesty and stuff like that. So basically, that's what it does.
I want to take you back to a statement made by one time Attorney General of the country, in person of Akin Olujimi. He said he expressed the need that anything that has to do with religion should be totally taken away from educational issue in the country.
Fine. So
what's your thought on that?
No, he said everything religion taken away, except he comes to explain what he meant by that. It's just flying on the surface. Because in those institutions, Bible knowledge is taught, Islamic knowledge is taught, African traditional religion is taught in some setting. So when you say take it away, are you saying don't teach all of these things there? So when you say take it away, I would need him to explain what he meant by that. Okay. Of course, he has a right to whatever opinion he was expressing. So that I would want to understand.
We're trying to avoid a situation where in the process of using hijab in public schools,
I'm telling you, in public school in the UK, they use hijab.
It doesn't mean we should use it here.
Okay,
There seems to be. I am surprised when you cannot define between religious extremism and professionalism. Let me bring some things to the fore. I've heard my discussant, and it's quite sad and embarrassing because if you want to compare, you don't even go there. I think the Muslim group have more privileges across the length and breadth of this country than even the Christians.
How?
If you work in a place, even in the government house, once it's on Friday, it's 12 o'clock, you will leave for the mosque.
On Sunday, you don't go at all. On Sunday, you don't go.
We don't go, but you have more holidays than the Christians. How many holidays do we observe?
That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. No.
The purpose of this discussion,
if you are a lawyer,
the purpose of this discussion is to bring about a balance.
Yes, sir.
And if you are saying that as a Christian, there seems to be less holidays for Christians, you know, as compared to what the Muslims have, like what the Malam said, what stops you from agitating on that?
I'm coming. No, I have to point that. Bring about. Yes, I'm coming. I have to point that out.
They have big Salah and small Salah. We also have Christmas and Easter. And of course, we all celebrate New Year together.
Because it cannot hold water.
No, so
why?
Supreme Court decision can be revisited. Who said? Supreme Court decision can be reviewed.
Not on this platform. Go and start it now.
Okay, and we're already on it, and it will happen.
It will not happen.
It will happen, sir. That is the same attitude they take to the Supreme Court. It is sad when we become religious. That's why we are in this country.
Okay,
when somebody get there and say my religion must be superior to the other, that's why we are.
Superiority. What is the definition of superiority?
Let me quickly.
What is the definition of superiority? I want to dress and I choose what I wear.
You are not more superior than Christians. But my points are simple. My point is that you must be able to know that this is a nation and this is a society. You know, it is embarrassing when a lawyer sits down and starts trying to manipulate the whole stuff. I want to quickly say this. You are talking about UK. UK is not Nigeria. It is more appalling when you sit on here and tell me the religious group can also wear their dressing. Now, where is that the place? Even in law school, they have an official dog. They have a code of dressing. I'm sure he has been to law school. They have a day that is given to religion. To say whatever you want to wear, go. Even in your offices, various offices, you have a right to your own code. How can I have a school, for example? If that law were to be enacted in Benin, I will never obey it. How can I have a school, for example, and you are telling me this is what must be? When you have a right to have your own religious school, and you are telling me as a trained lawyer that anybody can wear what he wants to wear. So what you are telling me is that that man, there's a lawyer, a famous lawyer, that dressed like a traditionalist to the court.
No, it's not just like a traditionalist.
You should never have a case against that.
Traditionalists do not wear
You should never have a case against that. Oh, come on. That's just a way to spice up.
No, it's not. No, but you said it's a traditionalist.
Recently.
It was placed in the hand of the
You don't do that. No, that's the thing. If you say you want to dress like traditionalist, that's why.
I have the floor.
Yes,
I had the floor.
Yes, you just rounded off on your point.
No, I'm not. I was about to.
Okay.
You know, my point is this. I am not against the Christians or the Muslims. What I'm saying is that what is secular should be defined as seen as secular. We must not bring in religious bias into governance. That's why we are where we are as a nation. And that's exactly what is happening to the judiciary, sadly. And when a judge can come and say you can wear anything, so it means that whatever I wear to the court tomorrow should not be questioned.
Okay.
Where is now sanity? My question is, the purpose of law is to bring about sanity in society.
Okay, Malam, this question goes to you. Like one of the respondents made this fashion. He said, whether we admit it or not, the Supreme Court's decision will give rise to identification of students' religion by their dress code, which in turn will bring about discrimination, favoritism, nepotism, victimization, disunity, and distraction in the public school system. Now, we seem to have a fragile peace in Nigeria. Don't you see this mode of dressing being approved or ruled in favor of it by the Supreme Court as a way that could cause some violence, you know, in schools, because you can't take away children in their playful attitude. You know, they may playfully make wrong description about the hijab, and that could bring about provocations, religious provocation, because we've had situations where a little, you know, altercation could bring about violence, looking at the religion-based issues in this regard. Don't you think that is a very delicate point that could bring about chaos in schools?
There's absolutely nothing that is delicate about that. When these kids are in school, you mean they are believers of the religion of one another? That the one who is a Christian doesn't know that the other one is a Muslim?
But some children make fun of the hijab.
No. You see, the fact of the matter is that those who have always worn this to school, such had never happened, except that there will be people who want to stoke that fire now. It has not happened. They play together, they do all sorts of whatever together, because that is not an issue. People work in an office, those who choose to wear hijab wear. There are some who do not even profess Islam. For fashion, they wear this hijab. We are the ones taking this thing out of, blowing it out of proportion, because there's absolutely nothing. I gave you the history of it. Two students were going to school. The vice principal in a public bus removed their hijab and said, you can't wear this. That was extremism on the part. I don't like this. I will not tolerate this from you. They had a right to say, this is our practice, this is what the religion dictates to us, and it's not in any way affecting nobody. It doesn't bring about discrimination. Why would kids who are brought up well, for example, who have been well cultured, why would you look at another person and sneer at the person on the basis of, even if the person was wearing pants, you don't need to mock that person, because you do not get somebody reformed by mockery. And so when you say it could bring about discrimination, it could bring about that, where has it happened? It has not happened. In societies that are much better, that are more civilized, more advanced, they have left this so-called conservatism. That explains why I told you, in the space where you bring issues like this, it is because somebody, when you now say, okay, I cannot do this because you want to enforce secularism, but you can do your own. And I say the way you have chosen to dress is the way that your religion dictates to you. I'm not quarreling with that.
Okay, there have been times where the Supreme Court decisions were reviewed. Now, you are saying that this may not be reviewed.
Has come to stay.
So it has come to stay.
It has come to stay.
What makes you think so?
What makes me think so is simple, because it has to do with the fundamental right of the individuals who are involved. And so where you have had the review, it was not the one that had anything to do with the fundamental. But when you now say, my use of a particular whatever is discriminatory against you, the onus and the burden is on you to prove how does my daughter's use of hijab, for example, discriminate. If you now say, oh, I want to, as a Christian, dress my daughter in the Christian mode of dressing, if the Christian has a mode of dressing, so be it. Dress the child. Or I'm a traditionalist, I want to whatever. Like the lawyer who said, this is how I'll be going to Supreme Court, we say, we have no problem with that, dress that way. But when you say you are dressing like an Oloku, the Oloku man does not wear wig, the Oloku man does not wear gown. So if you want to be an Oloku man to appear before the court, do so with all pleasure. That's your own. And when you do so, the hijab woman's hijab is not restricted to the classroom. She wears it everywhere. And so I will expect that that lawyer wears his local dress everywhere he goes.
Malam Nurudeen, don't you think this ruling might kind of cause a kind of tension?
There is no tension, except that people, I'll give you one clear example.
Okay.
Go to immigration office in Sokoto, for example. You want to snap as a female to get your passport that will take you outside of this country. You are snapped the way you come. Go to the one here. They'll tell you, remove this, whatever. Nobody has asked that they should do so. You must remove it. And that has absolutely nothing to do. It will depend on the person you have seen taking advantage. If I'm a Muslim, for example, and I deal with a Christian on the basis of bias, then my claim to being a Muslim is defective.
Okay. Let's take your final words. Let's take your final words on this.
Yes, I want to quickly make a correction. It is not a fundamental, it's a distortion of the true interpretation of what a fundamental right is. So if a lawyer, because I have listened to a lot of lawyers about this. So somebody personal view that comes and says it's a fundamental right is not true. It's a distortion.
What is a
there are interpretations of the laws. Sir, let me have the floor. This is the same attitude that you take to the court.
But they have right to their religious practices.
Do I not have rights? But does my right not have limitations?
But what we're saying here, is if you have rights, let me explain any complaints about that. Can't you approach the court for a redress?
Let me quickly say what I mean by that. Okay. If you have, nobody is saying they don't have a fundamental right to dress the way they want to. Please, I'm only trying to say fundamental right have rules and conditions that govern it. Not to a school. A school is not a church, neither is it a mosque.
Okay.
You have a fundamental right to your place of worship to dress the way you want to. But you also have that fundamental right. It's also limited when it comes to a formal institution. That formal group has a right to his own laws, his own bylaws, his own regulations. Then let me also quickly say that it is wrong for someone to want to inch it on fundamental right. But even fundamental right in terms of dressing and religion is a private life. No religion should be brought publicly to try to use it to intimidate others. Okay, I'm afraid to say it is not a compulsion. You won't try that in a northern state.
Okay, I'm afraid we have to.
And I think Malam Nurudeen actually, you want to say something. You want to respond to that.
But you see, the issue is that
you can't try that.
Both the African Charter, the 1999 Constitution as amended, religion is a fundamental.
Private.
It's not private.
It's private.
Go and read it. It's not private.
It's not
are you a legal practitioner? Are you a legal practitioner?
Are you a legal practitioner? I have a lot of senior lawyers that have talked on this issue.
Thank you very much, Malam, for taking our time to be part of this discussion.
It's not public.
Thank you very much, Osage Godse, for taking our time. While we allow this issue to settle, let's look at the other thread of discussion, looking at the resignation of Tanko Mohammed, the former CGN, from office. Now, it greeted the world with great, terrific moments where nobody expected that it's just going to come all of a sudden. Now, how did you receive this news about the resignation of Tanko Mohammed, Malam?
Well, is not the first to do that. Do not forget that Justice Mustapha Akombi, who was then the president of the Court of Appeal, he had 2 solid years to go when he retired. And the explanation he furnished when he did that was that, what am I going to contribute that I have not done? Let me give opportunity to others to be on that seat so that they could do better. He was a man who was a typification of integrity. Tanko ought to have gone by December next year, but he's been challenged earthwise.
What about the allegations of...
I'm coming, I'll get there. He's been challenged earthwise. It's not been doing well. For some reasons that we would not want to express on air, he had to hold on to that power until when it became convenient for some persons, perhaps, that yes, if you say you want to go now, you can go. Yes, 14 Supreme Court, senior Supreme Court justices had signed a petition where they had talked about impropriety in financial management of the system. And they did all that in the open, submitted that petition to Tanko and said, they were going to be more drastic if something wasn't done to sanitize the system. Time there was, between 2014 and early part of 2015, justices of Supreme Court were being owed salaries. It was as bad as that. And these justices were simply saying that but for the financial hemorrhage in the system internally, what had been given as financial budget, whatever, to the judiciary was more than enough for the justices to live a life of relative clover. Do not again forget the fact that The last time the salaries of justices were reviewed was in 2008 or 2009. In fact, there are some senior advocates who are presently in court insisting that there was a need for the pay to be reviewed. Mustapha, Tanko reacted by saying that these justices had come to dance naked in the public. Shortly after then, he threw the towel. It is true, we have repeatedly said so. But it is beautiful that it is the justices themselves who are saying that there is corruption.
Okay, but do you admire his impact in the judiciary?
Well, you see, did he do well? We would have expected that he does better than he did. From the very beginning, he had head challenge, which they tried to paper over. And part of it is what I say, I cannot speak. But if somebody suffers that kind of medical condition, it becomes susceptible to manipulation.
Thank you.
All right, the human rights writers of Nigeria has actually filed a suit asking the EFCC to arrest the CGN who just resigned. What's your thought on that, Isage?
Well, is right. I mean, the human right has a right to file any suit, and possibly anybody could be accused. But it's not guilty until the courts have actually proclaimed so or pronounced so. But that news made me with mixed feelings for a particular reason. You see, the judiciary is a very sacred institution from what we know. And my worry is this: when you kept on having cases of corruption in the seat or the institution that is supposed to try corrupt people.
Allegations, don't forget.
So to speak,
allegations.
It's worrisome when it becomes repeatedly.
Okay.
Like I said, you see, it is only in Nigeria we try to mask things and make things seem like it's nearly impossible.
Who said it's only in
Now,
Nigeria?
No, listen, I'm coming.
We have other countries.
No, you don't know what I'm about to say. When I say mask things and make things nearly impossible, you should wait to know what I meant. What I meant is in terms of establishing systems that can test and check credibility. What does it take to really have a system that is transparent enough that even when, like for example, part of the accusation of the 14 judges is the fact that part of the argument was the fact that the House of Assembly recently increased the budgetary allocation to the judiciary. Now, according to them, if their write-up and petition were anything to go by, before then, they had some privileges and practices, which according to the petition, were greatly declined. As in, there were only 1 or 2 cases of traveling trip abroad to get trained and whatever. And they also accused the former CGN of having his own trip with his own staff and his own family. Now, what I mean is, when I say he's only in this place to try to max things up, what does it take for an institution like the judiciary to set a transparent system that is reliable in place? Now, we cannot cancel the fact that there will always be petitions. There will always be people prognosing. There will always be people trying to indict somebody. But we have also seen in the past that some of the judges that have been tried, one way or the other, were able to find one thing. I mean, you are here when the Asunogay case was on with the Bureau. Asunogay case was on with the Federal Bureau, and a lot of revelations that came out, you know. So I am worried that as sacred as that institution, which is saddled with the responsibility of helping us to curb this menace of corruption, there is always this allegation of corrupt practices. It doesn't tell well for the CGN, the past CGN, even though I hold the view that he really didn't do much as his CGN in his time. But I call on the judiciary to begin to think of how to put system in place. Like I said, it's only in this country we are not able to put that system. Somewhere outside the world, they are able to set systems in place. Now the systems speak for itself. Okay. There's a transparency process, even in form allocation and how it is spent.
So Malam, Nurudeen, do you share any thoughts that we have a lacuna in the judicial system?
Well, if you were privileged to go through the petition that was signed by 14 of the senior justices of the Supreme Court, you appreciate the fact that yes, there are leakages. There are leakages.
And there is need for prosecution.
In the response of the outgone CJN, the immediate past CJN, when he was responding, in one of the paragraphs, of course, he alluded to the fact that you could not have insulated the judiciary from the environment in which it found itself, perhaps using that as a basis to provide justification for all of those issues that were raised. But I think fundamentally there are issues. You know, sometimes, like I said, when you are a weakling, either you naturally are so or you were rendered enfeebled on account of your health situation. Some persons could take advantage over you, and do some
but we never knew.
It was right.
I'll give you one clear example. There was an accountant of the Edo State Judiciary who went to jail. Somewhere along the line, the then CJN Constance Momo looked into the records. Yes, she was held. They looked into the records and discovered that the records were not straight. And so the man was required to explain how some millions of naira were missing. He was not in a position to do all of that. And unfortunately, he had to go to jail. And so, you know, there are things you can't say on air as it relates to the medical condition of the man who is just.
So to your mind.
But for one who is seized of this fact, the man became open, became susceptible to manipulation.
So to your mind, it was right. He takes a bow at this
time.
Of
course.
Just as you also agree to that.
It was a noble decision.
Okay, thank you so much, Malam Nurudeen Asunogay, for taking our time to be part of this.
Even though that had not addressed the issue, it was good you took him out.
This man.
Okay. Thank you so much, Osage Godsend Erunse. Well, we'll take a short break, after which we're going to be having insurance segment. You'll stay.